Hello, everyone. Happy New Year. Welcome back. Today, I'm joined by Brett Lee, as always, and Marshall Nyanhete. Marshall, thank you so much for joining us, mate. It's great to have you back. I hope you had as good a Christmas and New Year as possible. Um,
Guys, thanks for having me. Yeah,
yeah, it's,
um,
it's, it's our
New
pleasure.
Year's Christmas was a weird time, but I think we'll get into that a little bit.
Yeah,
But thanks
you
for having me.
you're one of our regular contributors now on our website for our articles. You wrote a fantastic article for us on your mindset going into this year, some of the things that you think that we should take away from last year, and how you're trying to approach this year. Kind of, do you want to just
Yeah,
you know let me know your feelings on the sorts of things that you think we should be sort of taking away from the previous year,
right.
as hectic as it was.
It just feels to me like there's I know every time I get to January, like this time of year, I feel like a sort of it's almost like a need to sort of drive forward. You know what I mean? To just like sort of look ahead at the year and start planning and start putting my into place. It feels like with this year. I know speaking personally, I feel like a lot of my goals have kind of, if not been derailed, then at least knocked to the side a little bit. So it felt very important to me to kind of take time the year we've had to just sort of reflect on it. Not in a very sort of in a super active way, but just to sort of allow some of the things that have happened to run through your mind and to try and make sense of them. Because I know it sounds very sort of I don't know, indulgent almost, but it's a very different experience that we've gone through, and get this sort of our brains get used to doing things in sort of routine and in habits. So when that habit is sort of derailed in a very big way, such as the way that we've all experienced this year, it's quite hard for us to feel like grounded. And I think that's the main thing I was trying to sort of communicate with the article, that it's important to feel grounded, but in order to feel grounded you first have to sort of address the past. And if you're one of those people who's perhaps experiencing mental health difficulties as a result of everything we've experienced, then it's important for you to take that time in order for you to be able to move forward. And I think that's what I was trying to communicate with the article. Yeah,
Yeah, I definitely think that came through, and I feel quite similar in that I love Christmas and I love New Year, but especially that period between Christmas and New Year I always find quite difficult. It's this kind of void between the two periods, and kind of trying to get myself ready for the new year. And like yourself, I'm fairly goal oriented and quite driven, and I know what I want and I want to get into it. And it kind of feels, especially this year, with there was literally nothing we were able to do. So not even being able to go and see friends in that period or spend time with family. I
yeah,
felt quite sort of in limbo almost. And the end of this year has probably been the most difficult part for me personally. That from the start of the last lockdown, I found it much more difficult than beforehand. And there's a part of me that certainly wants to just kind of like forget that, move on, not think about it anymore. And like you say, there is so much. There is probably a lot of important stuff we need to take from that, but it can be, I think, quite difficult not to uh, dwell on it too much, and take the important things away, but not stay in that space too often.
it seems to me like that would be the danger of any sort of reflection like this. It's I mean, it's usually people have a therapist to take them through any sort of reflection that deals with the past or with traumatic events. And I know like I sound like I'm being indulgent, but a lot of this year for some people has been traumatic. You know what I mean? It's switching on the news every day and hearing like a daily sort of death count, almost like a tap
Yeah,
that's on
Yeah.
drip. That's not a normal thing, you know what I mean? And we've all had to go through that. And I think
Mm.
we'll have to go through that for a little bit longer from the looks of things. But let's not kid ourselves and say like that's just something you can like walk away and brush yourself from. I do think it's important not to dwell on the past. I touch about it in the article a little bit. If you open the doors to the past and stay there for too long, then the danger is you dredge up things that really you have no control over anymore because they've happened, right?
Mhm.
Because you can't influence them. The danger then the mind is putting itself in this sort of loop, where because it can't solve the problem, it's constantly colliding around. Sort of, if you imagine like walls, and that's the effect really. So in the end of it, you're quite disorientated. And equally, if you sort of try and rush too far into the future, you're in this place of just endless possibility, and that usually brings up anxiety. So I guess what I was trying to say with the article was marry past, the future, and the present. Sort of consider each thing. So where you've been, where you're going, where you currently are now, but don't sort of indulge in those things. Allow them to give you the necessary information, and then go of them, because like I say, there's a reason why people usually have to have somebody leading them through this type of conversation or type of work.
Yeah, for sure. Sorry, I kind of...
It's going to be another new year of us trying not to interrupt each other with questions.
It's because of the bloody... The fact that we have to do this over the internet. There's always a bit of lag, so it's hard to tell when the other person's talking or not.
Go ahead, mate. Go ahead.
I was just going to sort of talk about how I felt like for me going through... I had lots of goals at the beginning of last year and lots of ideas because I just moved to London, so I had a lot of plans of things I wanted to do and achieve, and I felt like that's... even during the lockdown periods, stuff was happening with demographic and stuff, so I was still having like these goals come up, but it's so I've struggled to cut myself some slack when it comes to realizing that these goals aren't really all that easy to achieve, or are too I don't know if too ambitious is the right. Maybe too ambitious during a time like this, because it's so important to realize that this is. I mean, not to use the same word that everybody else is using, but it's unprecedented. Like we haven't been prepared for something like this, and it's important to make sure that you don't try and hold yourself to too high a standard when we're dealing with so much shit.
Yeah.
Sure. No, I think that's the best way of putting it. It's been a shitstorm, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think agreeing with both of you, like what you were saying, Elijah, I am very goal orientated. So the temptation with me is just to sort of try and like fix everything at once, or to try and put everything into place at once. I guess because of and this is sort of tying into your point, Brett, because of the unpredictable nature of this year, where you're getting sort of information day by day. You can't really sort of plan your life beyond a couple of weeks for most people, in most cases. I've really struggled to do that. But I think a good thing that's come out of that is now at least I've become better at sort of breaking down my goals and sort of breaking down the time periods. It's not the best way, but like I feel like at the moment I don't live beyond a couple of weeks. I don't plan it because, like it's... like what you can predict what's going to happen, but so far for me that's made it manageable, and it's made it more like get that feeling of achievement still, you know what I mean? To feel like you're gradually building towards the things that you want, but at the same time you're not just sort of trying to do the whole thing in one sort of big leap, which is what I normally do anyway.
Yeah, me too. And I think in some ways for us eventually, because I've been sort of similar to what Brett was saying, in the same position of feeling like I must be moving forward with my life, but everything in the world is against you in doing that. Towards the sort of middle and maybe definitely towards the middle of the year, when we were really getting things rolling with doing more interviews and getting the podcasting gear, in many ways it was freeing, because we didn't there were times where it didn't necessarily feel like we felt like, or at least I felt like I had the time to be able to focus on this stuff, and I felt very lucky and very grateful that I had a project when a lot of people didn't. The demographic in its form now was born out of the lockdown. We had to adapt things to keep it going, and it gave us a project, it gave us an outlet, and in a way these conversations that we have is a form for me of therapy, because it's meeting loads of new people. I managed to find a way to make new friends and find people who are doing new projects that are doing amazing things, and understand that not everyone had that opportunity, but I think that it's enabled me to sort of learn and grow and adapt in a way that I wouldn't necessarily have done before. And kind of off the back of that, I wanted to ask you both, what do you think if you're going to take anything from the last year, are the most important things that you'll take from 2020 going into 2021?
You go first, Marshall.
Oh, thanks, man. To offer you this kind of, but I think for me, it's one of the most important things I've picked up is that sense of like, I managed to find a stillness which has not been possible to find before this year. And by a stillness, I mean sort of like a breathing room. I've been in London for the past 5 years, and for me, that's always been in order to pursue something, to put sort of your life into place. And you guys know the feeling of London is very, very sort of forward looking, where we know where we're going. We don't sort of most of the time have time for anybody who's outside of that. You know, that it's quite difficult to carve out like breathing room within that moment. So I guess for a lot of this year, I've been lucky enough to just travel, like living with family, living with friends. Now I'm in Wickham where nothing happens, but you know, that's been very useful part of my, I think, growth. Like I was saying before the interview started, I'm feeling very much in love with acting again. And I think that's come from having that space to make it your own and to understand it for yourself, sort of away from the pressures and the demands of the industry. Now, I feel like I've got a much more clear sense of the person who I want to be, of the artist I want to be. And that's all come from not being able to access it, which is very bizarre, but yeah, I think that's one thing I want to hold on to going forward.
Brett?
I think for me, I sort of feel like I've still sort of discovered a lot about myself, particularly this year, because you have a lot of time to think about things and to reflect and to maybe spend a bit too much time in your own head. But I think mental health has sort of really come to the forefront again for me. I kind of felt like after living through some trauma a few years ago and getting past that, I felt like, I think I had a bit of a feeling like I wasn't going to get down again, or I'd moved past the worst period of my life, and that was that. Yeah. And that it was only upwards. But then, and I think I was in a little bit of denial during the first lockdown, when I was starting to feel a bit like lethargic and just, you know, down every day because we were stuck in this situation where we couldn't do anything really. And hearing about other people's experiences during this whole thing I think it's made me more aware of it and makes me want to try and do something about it in the future, and also promote the idea that, you know, everybody suffers from poor mental health at some stage in their life. So it's important to recognize that and to not just let it happen, not ignore it. Or to think that it can't happen to you, because it can. Absolutely, it can.
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, like, just want to say, yeah, and you've done so much, sort of, especially towards the back of last year, to, you know, push us in a direction to be more vocal about this stuff. And I know it's something that you're really passionate about, and we've got loads of really exciting stuff, you know, to kind of talk about looking forward, maybe this year that we want to do based around that that topic of raising awareness or changing the way that we look at mental health from a more preventative point of view, and not medicalizing it and looking at it as something that we all experience every day at all times, you know. So you know, kudos to you, man. And I think that's, for me, kind of been a similar one in just appreciating the strength of the human spirit in so many people this year. So many people have had to go through really, really difficult times, and have managed to, you know, go through experiences that at the start of the year were completely unforeseen in such a powerful, strong way. And it's been an incredibly difficult year for a lot of people, and a lot of people never would have dreamt that you know, last year was going to be that year for them. So I think that for me, that's been something that I've definitely noticed, and it's made me more appreciative of little things in life, like you say, Marshall, with, you know, your passions. I think the same for me is that I don't want to harp on this point too much, but I'm in an incredibly lucky position, and I think it's made me far more aware of my privilege than I was beforehand. So looking to this year, then, I mean, you spoke about your kind of some of your passions and them coming to the forefront in your life. You know, how are you, you know, looking to approach this year? It's kind of difficult, I guess, because I think from my point of view, I saw this year as being, the vaccine's coming and the rates are going down and we're going to be able to get back to some semblance of normality. That's maybe now not looking like it's going to be the case. So to kind of, push yourself into 2020, 2021, what are you doing to kind of, move forward and move on? And
it's a little mixture of hoping and and praying. It's a case of one thing I've really struggled with is not during the pandemic. You've only been able to see forward to a certain point, right? So like you say, Jack, I think we're going to be in that period for a little bit longer. So I guess for me, it's just I've resolved this year to not sort of like plan too far ahead into the future. And for me, that's a very scary thing to sort of go, here are the reins. We'll see what happens. But I feel like that's the position I'm in, and that's the position I need to be in, because for the last year I've picked up so many helpful things from that sort of, I wouldn't call it spontaneity, but it's been a relaxing of that sort of control you usually exercise of your life. I feel like it's been so beneficial for me that I'm super interested to find out what more I can gain from that. Yeah. But I guess the reason I'm struggling to join these thoughts is because I had a sort of a point to make about what we were talking about with mental health before, Brett. But one guy I discovered this year, I'd never watched like a lick of boxing whatsoever, but Tyson Fury. I've been seeing so many of his interviews, and I don't know if you guys know, but he went through quite a big, like widely publicized, I don't know if you can call it mental health breakdown, but for me, hearing such a powerful and big and sort of successful human being talking about the fact that he's experienced these low points and he knows he's going to continue experiencing them, because that's humanity. That's we have high moments and we have low moments. That has been one of the most uplifting things for me, because I think the danger with mental health sometimes is you isolate yourself in your mind. You go, this is happening to me and only me. It's my problem. But seeing, someone who owns the world stage like that, I've never seen a more confident person than Tyson Fury. Just look at the interview clips and all of that. Or so I thought, you know what I mean? And that's been the brilliant thing of watching these interviews and going, you can be widely successful, you can have everything you want, but we're all human beings. You know what I mean? Our minds need actively looking after. Yeah. I think one of the things, it's sort of going off tangent here, but I think CBT is something that should be sort of made available to everyone. It's a form of therapy, but I think it should be taught in schools. It's just a preventative measure, like we were talking about. Mental health shouldn't be always a medical thing that you're sort of looking to heal. It's a thing that you should be promoting even before it's gone sort of off the point that it needs to be at. Yeah, sorry to kind of...
No, not at all. Not at all. Yeah. I think it's such an important point. And, Tyson Fury's, the example of Tyson Fury is a fantastic one. I mean, I'm aware of, I follow boxing, and I'm very much aware of him and his story. And he's a guy that's got an incredible life story. And I would urge everybody to sort of listen to some of his interviews talking about his experiences, because he's an amazing guy. It has some dubious views about sort of social issues, but is incredibly difficult not to like. And that's human beings for you, right? And I completely agree about equipping people to deal with, to manage their mental health better is so important. And that's, again, I guess something that I've got out of last year is working on giving myself the tools to best put myself in a position mentally to be able to be the best version of myself, if that makes sense. We spoke in the interview we did with Nat Rich about and I think you mentioned this in your article, Marshall, about giving yourself a routine, and that's been massive for me this year. Has been every day giving myself stuff to do, ensuring that I get it done, giving myself goals, taking ownership for my life and my problems, and getting stuff done. And it's something constantly working towards, working on. Nobody's perfect, but I feel like this year that's helped me a lot in being able to get through things.
It's funny because I feel like for me, having a routine was good to a point. I felt if my days were too organized and too rigid, doing them over and over and over again each day during a lockdown when you're not really seeing much coming from it in terms of productivity, or it doesn't feel as rewarding as it might do if you then got to go out and see friends or whatever. To me, doing that every day ended up lowering my mental health at the time as well. So, but then again, the same goes for not having any routine at all and not doing anything. That also lowers. So for me, it was more about a balance.
Yeah. That's why I think it's so important to give people the opportunity to figure out what works for them, right? It's like we're all different. We're all going to find things that work in a different way. So give people the ability to find what works best for them.
And like chiming in on that, Brett, I found myself in this middle place between some days it felt good to have a structure. Some other days I felt like I was very aware of the fact that I was imposing that structure myself. And so it became a chore.
Yeah.
Like when things are a chore and when I can't see the reason for doing them, it confounds my mind. I hate it. Like I'm like, why am I doing this? There's no point in doing something just for the sake of doing something, is the way my mind thinks. I've never been sort of a big sort of outdoorsy person, but that's one of the things I've really, really missed during this lockdown.
Yeah.
I think take something away from someone and they realize how valuable it is, right? But going outside has been my routine. I know it's such a little thing, but like to know that every day I'm going to take this 30 minutes. I'm either going to go here or this direction or whatever, but I'm going to take this 30 minutes. That hasn't felt like something that I'm having to work myself up to, if that makes any sense. But it's still giving my day that little structure, and that's been super important.
I think it's such a crucial point. And there's moments with it in the lockdown, when it was loosened, that I got to visit my girlfriend Amy, and she lives in the Forest of Dean, and it is beautiful. I think I've spoken about that area before. It's somewhere I never would have gone to in my life, but I mean, she lives smack bang in the middle of the forest, and I absolutely love going there. It's completely different to anywhere I've lived. So it's kind of like your mindset changes because you're in a different place, and I'm able to relax, and I love spending time there. And it's a really, really important point. I think, like you say, you take something away from someone and they realize how much it means to them or how important it is. And nature, I think, has definitely been that for a lot of people.
Sure, yeah. Absolutely. I mean, come to Wickham, guys. Sounds like you'd love it.
Yeah,
it's just like
for sure.
Yeah.
Is this High Wickham you're talking about?
It is High Wickham. It's like, oh my, don't come because now you're going to see how boring it is.
I've been loads of times. My grandparents live like 10 minutes down the road, so I used to go there all the time as a kid.
Mate, yeah, it's so peaceful, but I think that's what I'm finding now. It's very densely populated with older people, which is great.
Yeah, it's a lovely area though.
For sure. I was thinking it's I don't know how much longer I'm going to be here because we sort of touched into this with so I went back to uni as soon as the pandemic started. Just to sort of like help my career. It seemed at the time that acting wasn't going to be there weren't going to be as many opportunities as there'd previously been, and that the acting industry, you guys know what that means. There were hardly any opportunities anyway. So in my mind I was like, I'm going to go to uni and something else on the side. But that's been super difficult because, like I say, it's that routine feels like you're doing it just sort of for the sake of doing something. It's quite a difficult thing to keep on top of and keep striving with. We'll see.
I bet, especially if you don't have like lectures or seminars or whatever, it must be hard to stay on top of it.
Yeah, I think that's been the thing. So for me personally, I feel quite fortunate. I'm a bit older, but I'm looking at my little brother, for example. He's gone off to uni as well. He's like 19. 20 on January the 1st, so need to be a better brother. I remember that. But for him, it's the whole year has been online learning. I look at that and I go, you guys are like, I know the quality of education we received, and comparing it to what they're getting, I don't think it's fair. You know what I mean?
I found first year of uni difficult enough with lectures, so. God knows what it must be like for somebody who's just spending all their time indoors. I mean, I guess if you're lucky, you'll become really close with the people that you live with, but not everyone's that fortunate, and it'll be a really difficult time for a lot of people. It's like we shared an article this morning on the Demographica Twitter page that was talking about the increase in prescription of antidepressants, and we'll come back to the mental health conversation, and I think everything ties into this. There isn't the support for people at the moment, and the lockdowns that are going on, as important as they are, we need to start taking into consideration the other effects that they have, the other impacts that they have. And I think you touched on it, really crucially, is like this is a really difficult time for a lot of people who are living the lives that they've lived for the past 10, 15, 20 years, let alone people whose lives are changing for the first time ever. They're moving out of the house for the first time. It's a really difficult period. So, best of luck to your brother and like, of course, to you as well, man.
For sure. No, thank you. No, I think we'll all be all right, to be fair, because like you say, we've got a strong communication network, and that's been, again, one of the perks that's come out this year, because I think, to be quite honest, I'm one of those people where if I don't hear from you, I assume you're fine. It's just my personality, you know what I mean? I'm like, those are the people I appreciate, and I think the term is low maintenance or whatever, but that's quite dangerous sometimes, you know what I mean, in terms of you can think people are okay, but really they're not. And I think that's one thing I learned this year, just from picking up the phone more constantly to my brothers, my sisters, and just going, hello, how are you? Trying to make each other laugh, even when, someone's not saying everything, but your siblings, you can sense what's going on. So just trying to give somebody another voice to bounce off. You can't overestimate that, you know what I mean? That is the healing process itself.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's especially important to check up on the people that don't get checked up on, where that kind of complacency, like you say, can be dangerous, and everyone needs, like we say, if we're preaching that everyone has these difficulties and everyone has the possibility of having low mental health or poor mental health, however you want to phrase it, then it's extra important to check up and make sure that everyone's okay. Last thing I want to ask you both, did you make any New Year's resolutions?
I didn't, no. I kind of figured that, I don't normally anyway, but I don't, because I have goals and I have like things that I already want to work towards anyway. So I don't find the extra added pressure of saying, as of the 1st, I'm gonna do this until the end of the year. I don't feel like it helps me. So, but I do have goals, I guess, for the new year. Marshall?
I didn't, by the way, just to caveat the question. I didn't make any New Year's resolutions for a similar reason. Yeah.
This is the thing. New Year's for me is the big one. Like any other holiday, you can take it back, but New Year's there's something in the air for me about New Year's. I know it's a date we pluck out and go, yeah, this is the beginning of the year, but for me, that there's again, going back to the routine orientated thing, I think I need that kind of structure, and I pick up from it. So usually I try and make one resolution. It's never sort of like a resolution for the year, because I try and think of like life and what's beyond that. This year, a lot of it has been to physically go and see people once we're able to. That's what I'm looking forward to do. Again, it's one of those things that I didn't realize I needed or missed until I didn't have the capability to do it. So yeah, I want to go and see more of my loved ones this year.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Brett and I haven't seen each other in about a year.
Yeah,
which is insane.
Oh my days!
I haven't seen any family members in over a year now.
It's really crazy, really crazy.
How was that? Like, if you don't mind, like that must. How has that been? Yeah, as an experience. Have you guys been talking to each other and stuff?
Yeah, we've been calling each other and having video chats and stuff. So it's not like I haven't physically seen them, but yeah, no, it's just strange, I suppose. Like they're people that you spent your whole life with, basically, and growing up, and to suddenly not be in their company at all, or it's weird. But then it hasn't felt like I spend quite long periods of time apart from family members anyway, because we all live all over the place, so it's not exactly easy to always see each other. But so it hasn't seemed completely out of the ordinary for me, but it's not ideal, obviously.
That's it. That's been this year, man. Hopefully, like I think, like you guys were saying earlier, with the vaccines and everything rolling out, period we're about to go into is going to be a little bit more organized. Yeah.
Let's hope so.
That
Yeah.
makes it better.
Okay.
Well, we'll be here to talk about it anyway, whatever happens.
Absolutely.
So, Marshall, thank you so much for joining us, mate. It's been great to chat with you, and you know, always welcome. You're a regular contributor to our article page now, so
Yes.
it's great to have your voice more on our platform.
Look out for his articles on the 1st of every month.
Yeah, exactly that. Exactly that.
I mean, thank you for having me. Yeah, it's been great. Just coincidentally as well, just being able to write throughout all of that year for Demographica has been one of the things that's kept me going on a path that's made me feel like I'm achieving something. So
Good.
Thank you guys for inviting me to meet.
It's our pleasure. It's our pleasure. And of course, you know, like and subscribe. As Brett said, be sure to check out our website consistently. We've got some great writers, regular contributors now, and you know, we'll have more weekly videos like this. So thanks for watching, and take care. And we'll speak to you soon.